Good morning. I'm Kathie Lee
And I'm Hoda Coatbead. We've got a great show for you today on the 4th hour of the Today Show.
Coming up to you live from my kitchen. We're both on house arrest due to multiple DUIs, so we figured we'd make the best of it and film it right here from home. Anyway, we've got a great segment coming up for you about delicious breakfast martinis.
And Kathie Lee is going to demonstrate how to drink wine directly from a box without spilling a drop.
But first, we have some very special guests on our show today. They've appeared together in a highly successful, thought-provoking movie 12 years ago. This movie was The Green Mile.
We are so excited to welcome Michael Clarke Duncan and Tom Hanks to our show. Although, we don't have Michael Clarke Duncan.
Oh, I'm Ricky Duncan. I'm Michael's adopted brother. He had a bit of a weightlifting accident this morning and asked me to fill in for him since I was his understudy for the movie.
Okay, well that's okay then. Let's get started, shall we?
Do either of you want breakfast martinis?
No.
Okay.
Tom, tell us about your character.
Well, I played the part of Paul Eldridge, a prison guard in charge of death row, which they called the Green Mile. He's got a crew of guards who follow Paul's lead. Well, except one guard. Despite being surrounded by the worst criminals in the justice system, he remains a compassionate man whose main goal is to maintain peace on the mile. There are many examples where Paul uses his position of authority to do what's best not only for the other guards, but also for the inmates. For example, when it comes time to execute a prisoner, a team of guards involved in the execution perform a trial run, where they practice the entire execution the day before. To avoid the stress that would be involved for an inmate to be witnessed in the practice run, he makes up an excuse to get them out of the picture for the run-through. For one of the inmates, Edward Delacroix, who had befriended one of the other stars in the movie, moused Mr. Jingles. He set up an elaborate charade where Mr. Jingles got to perform the tricks Dale had taught him for someone from the government. The government official is actually one of the custodians, but Dale comes back from the performance excited and happy, not like a man about to face the electric chair. Paul is just an overall good man.
Fascinating. Ricky, what about your brother's character? Can you tell us a little something about him?
My brother played an amazing character, John Coffey, like the drink, only not spelled the same. He's an enigma, and it's not long before the characters in the movie discover that there is something very unusual about him. He seems like an impeccable imbecile, but he starts showing that there is much more to him than his apparent sinfulness. Quite simply, he is able to perform miracles, like the one character said, praise Jesus miracles. But he is convinced of convicted of committing a terrible crime, the rape and murder of two little girls. It is obvious that he is guilty because he is found screaming with the girls in his arms. It keeps repeating, I couldn't take it back, it was too late. But after seeming to heal Paul of a terrible urinary tract infection, he tells him that he helped him by taking it back. I think this is when Paul starts truly believing that maybe John is not guilty of the murders he's accused of. Other than being able to perform healings, John also has a sense of things about people, especially when he touches them. He can feel emotions and sees what kind of people they truly are. He says in the movie, you can't hide what's in your heart. John sees and feels evil in the world that others do not have to experience. He becomes wary of it.
Most of the characters in the movie are amazing people, but there are a few characters who are evil. One of the guards, Percy Wetmore, comes to mind. Tom, tell us what you think about his character.
I think my character in the movie summed him up really well when he described him to the warden of Cold Mountain Prison, Hal Morris, as as mean, careless, and stupid. A bad combination for someone working in a prison. Percy's uncle is the governor, which is the only reason he has a job in the prison, and he constantly uses that connection to protect himself. The movie takes place in the 30s, during the Great Depression, and the other guards recognize how fortunate they are to have the jobs that they do. Percy is a bully, picking on people when they are helpless, but becomes frozen in fear if a person confronts him on equal footing. I can't talk today. Everyone despises him, and John recognizes that the evil comes from his heart, calling him a bad man.
John recognizes another bad man in the movie, William Wharton, or Billy the Kid as he likes to call himself. He comes as an inmate to death row after John gets there and causes nothing but problems right from the start, doing his best to make everyone's life miserable. As it turns out, he is actually the one responsible for the murders and death of the two little girls John is convicted of killing.
The Green Mile seems to have a lot of religious overtones. How do you think this theme of religion plays a part in the movie?
There are many supernatural occurrences that happen throughout the movie. All of the characters who witness what John is capable of believing, that there is a great power at work. My character really struggles with how he will be judged by God if he allows John to be executed, knowing that he was not guilty of the crimes he has been convicted for. He even says to his wife, as John's execution date nears, that he fears going to hell for killing one of God's miracles. He believes that what John does is inherently good, and its power must come from God himself.
I do think John is able to relieve Paul of his burdens to a certain extent. When Paul asks John what he's supposed to say to God when he faces the judgment seat about why he killed John, John replies that he should tell God the Father that it was a kindness he did. John is too burdened by what he sees and hears that others do not have the ability to know. He says he's just tired of people being ugly to one another. He does not. I do not think it's a coincidence that John Coffey has the same initials as Jesus Christ. There are many things about John that reflect the story and character of Jesus. Foremost, of course, is his ability to perform miracles. But he also passes judgment, as he did on Percy and Billy the Kid, when he passes whatever it was exactly that he sucked out of Melinda Morris, the warden's wife. He tells Paul that he punished the bad man. There's a sense of justice in what he did. And finally, he died for sins of another person. With John, it was an end to his own suffering, but there is still too much in common for it to be coincidence.
John truly seemed to touch everybody he came in contact with in some fashion. He definitely changed the ones he came in contact with. Tom, your character ended up living a very long time from being touched physically by John passing something of himself to Paul when he showed him what Billy the Kid had done to the little girls.
And don't forget that mouse. John was a force of nature, according to Tom's character, and you know he really had a connection with nature. One of my favorite scenes from the movie was when they sneak John out of the prison to go heal Melinda. He picks up a pile of leaves and wants to share the joy he experiences with Earth itself. I think there's a message in that. John was able to get such enjoyment from the earth because there was no evil in it.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks so much to our guests for coming on our show. Thanks, boys. And Ricky, please tell your brother we hope he feels better soon.
Well, great, Tommy. My box of wine is almost empty. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.